Welcome back. Our mission here is always to take compelling sources, research, historical texts, foundational curricula, and really extract the most important insights, giving you a shortcut to being truly well-informed.
And today, we're setting our focus on a single towering piece of wisdom and thanksgiving from the Psalter.
That's right. Today we're exploring Psalm 34.
And this is going to be a comprehensive exploration, not, just a quick summary. We're centering this entire discussion on the King James Version of the text.
Going verse by verse, really digging into the context, the theology.
Exactly. And for that, we're drawing heavily from the excellent foundational material provided by the UNFIJ in Jesus team curriculum. They frame this psalm brilliantly.
And it is a masterpiece, isn't it? It weaves together a personal crisis, a powerful deliverance, and then this timeless practical instruction for how to live.
It really does. But to get the full impact, you have to start with the circumstances that led David to write it. They were, frankly, utterly humiliating.
Right. The title itself tells you everything. It says, "A Psalm of David, when he changed his behavior before Abimelech, who drove him away, and he departed."
And that phrase, changed his behavior, is, let's just say, a massive understatement.
It really is. What actually happened, and we see this in 1 Samuel chapter 21, is that David was on the run from King Saul. He's desperate.
Completely desperate. So he flees to Gath, the city of the Philistines.
Enemy territory. The worst possible place for him to be.
And of course, he's recognized immediately. So to save his own life from King Achish, who the Psalter sometimes calls Abimelech David, has to think fast.
And his plan is, well, it's to feign madness.
He pretends to be a complete lunatic, scribbling on the doors, letting saliva run down his beard, scrabbling at the gate like an animal.
It's just an image of total self-abasement. There's zero dignity in that moment.
None whatsoever. Imagine the crushing shame, the loss of status for this great warrior. This wasn't a heroic victory, it was him hitting rock bottom.
And yet, this is the crucial point. Immediately after this humiliating escape, he sits down and writes Psalm 34.
A psalm of exuberant, unwavering public praise.
It's not the emotional reaction you'd expect from someone whose ego just took a massive hit.
Not at all. It's a considered theological response. It's from a man who recognizes that God delivered him from the brunk when he had exhausted every human resource, including his own self-respect.
And the structure of the psalm itself is part of its genius. The material from the UNFIJ in Jesus team really highlights this. It's an acrostic psalm.
It is, and that's so significant. An acrostic means each verse begins with the next letter of the Hebrew alphabet.
It's a literary device, a kind of memory aid.
Right. It's designed to make the wisdom memorable and comprehensive. It's as if David is saying, I'm going to cover this topic from A to Z. And because of that structure, it moves beautifully from his personal song of thanks into this really robust wisdom literature for everyone.
An invitation for all of us to participate in what he calls the fear of the Lord. So to really appreciate Psalm 34, we need to place it in its neighborhood, so to speak. It falls within Book 1 of the Psalter, specifically in that block from Psalm 21 to 41. What's the spiritual landscape there?
Book 5 of the Psalter is really foundational. It's deeply rooted in David's personal experiences, and the main theme is, trust in God amid all kinds of distress.
And this specific block, from 21 to 41.
The curriculum from the UNFIJ in Jesus team highlights this block as a rich tapestry. It's holding 4 key threads in tension: messianic tones, exuberant praise, practical wisdom, and a deep, raw honesty about suffering.
So it's personal, but it's pointing to something much bigger than just David.
Precisely. Let's touch on those messianic tones for a second, because they provide a powerful backdrop for David's trust.
Okay, how does this block show the dual nature of the Messiah?
It's really quite remarkable. This section captures the entire story arc of Christ. You look at Psalm 21 and Psalm 24, and they're celebrating the triumphant reigning king, the King of Glory.
About victory, strength, dominion.
Yes. But then right next to them is Psalm 22. And that's the excruciating messianic lament. It foretells Christ's cry on the cross, my, why hast thou forsaken me?"
And it gets incredibly specific, doesn't it?
Unbelievably specific. It details the piercing of his hands and feet, the parting of his garments, the scorning of the crowd.
So the block itself forces you to look past David's immediate temporary deliverance.
And see the greater ultimate deliverance provided by the suffering servant who is also the triumphant king.
So David's escape from Gath is like a foreshadowing.
It's a perfect foreshadowing of the Messiah's journey from the deepest shame and agony to the highest crown. And understanding that ultimate context makes David's choice to praise in Psalm 34 so much more meaningful.
It grounds his personal experience in an eternal principle of God's faithfulness.
Exactly. And that leads right into that third thread you mentioned, practical wisdom. The curriculum really emphasizes that this wisdom is about contrasting the fate of the righteous and the wicked.
Right, and it's not some abstract philosophical wisdom.
Not at all. It's survival wisdom, born from the crucible of experience. David is raw and honest about his pain, the betrayal, the sickness you see in Psalms like 38 and 41. But the emotional arc always transitions back to trust.
And Psalm 34 is sort of the how-to manual for maintaining that trust when everything around you seems to be collapsing.
That's a great way to put it. And speaking of its neighbors, you can't really understand Psalm 34 without looking at Psalm 32 and Psalm 37.
Okay, so why are those connections so vital here?
Well, they provide the spiritual preparation needed to even get to Psalm 34. Psalm 32 is called an instructive mashil, which means it's a teaching psalm.
One that requires some deep thought.
Right. It focuses intensely on the misery of unconfessed sin and then the immediate joy of pardon. David is basically saying that if you're going to praise God at all times, like he vows to do, you can't be carrying the burden of secret guilt.
So Psalm 32 is the spiritual cleansing. It gives him the clean heart he needs to approach God with the joy we see in Psalm 34.
Precisely. It's the prerequisite. And then right after it, you have Psalm 37, the famous fret not song.
The one about waiting patiently and trusting God.
Yes, refusing to get agitated by the temporary success of evil people. Psalm 34 provides the engine for that patience. It gives you the security and focus you find in this concept of the fear of the Lord.
And that really is the key theological concept for this entire discussion, isn't it? The fear of the Lord. It's central to Psalm 34, but it's so often misunderstood.
It really is. People hear fear and immediately think terror.
Right, like being afraid of a tyrant who's waiting to punish you.
But the You Need Faith in Jesus team materials are very explicit on this. That's not what it means at all. If you see God that way, you run away from him. But Psalm 34 calls us to seek him.
So what is it then?
It's defined as reverent awe and respectful submission to God's authority and character.
Reverent awe. That implies a deep understanding of God's holiness and power.
It does. It's an intellectual recognition of his infinite greatness that then translates into a practical, emotional response. You see his power, and it creates respect. You see his holiness, and it creates a desire for obedience. And you see his goodness, and that allows you to trust him completely.
So it's the spiritual operating system that makes all the wisdom David teaches later in Psalm even possible.
That's it. It's the beginning of wisdom, as Proverbs says. But here in Psalm 34, it's also the source of protection and provision.
Okay, with that framework in place, the humiliating escape, the cleansing of Psalm 32, and this idea of reverent awe, let's get into the text itself, starting with David's incredible vow of perpetual praise in verse 1.
He really sets a radical standard right from the start. Let's hear it. KJV, Psalm 34.1. I will bless the Lord at all times. His praise shall continually be in my mouth.
At all times. I mean, given the context we just talked about, the feigned madness, the shame, that commitment seems almost superhuman. It's so counterintuitive.
It is the definition of counterintuitive praise. He didn't say, I'll bless the Lord when I'm safe or when things make sense. He chose to praise when his situation was confusing, difficult, and deeply shameful.
So this is praise as an act of the will, not just an emotional reaction.
Absolutely. It's a conscious decision based on the fact that God's character, his goodness, his faithfulness, his power, that doesn't change, even when David's personal circumstances are in total chaos.
It's moving from a transactional faith where we only praise when we get what we want,
into a covenantal faith. The foundational material from the You Need Faith in Jesus team stresses this point. Praise is based on who God is, not what's happening to us.
And there's a practical step there for all of us.
A profound one. You can make a conscious, deliberate choice to bless the Lord, even when you're confused or in pain. And that deliberate act, even if it feels forced at first, immediately starts to shift your perspective from your troubles to his sovereignty.
Then David immediately makes this personal vow a public testimony in verse 2.
He does. KJV Psalm 34.2. My soul shall make her boast in the Lord. The humble shall hear thereof and be glad.
And that distinction is so important. Boasting in the Lord. He isn't patting himself on the back for his clever escape from H-ish.
No, the focus is entirely on the divine intervention that saved him. He's redirecting all the attention away from himself and onto God.
And he says his testimony is specifically for the humble.
Yes, it's for those who already recognize their own lack of power, their own vulnerability, and their utter dependence on God. When someone like that hears that God delivered a man from such profound shame, it gives them hope.
So our personal testimony is meant for corporate encouragement, not self-aggrandizement.
It's for communal utility. Our stories of God's deliverance aren't for our own credit. They're meant to build up the entire community of believers, especially those who are struggling right now. David's vulnerability, the story of the slobbering madman, becomes the proof of God's supernatural care.
And verse 3 is the direct invitation, isn't it? He pulls the listener right into that corporate praise.
He does. KJV Psalm 34.3. Oh, magnify the Lord with me, and let us exalt his name together.
What does it practically mean to magnify the Lord? You can't actually make him bigger.
It means making his greatness more visible, like looking through a magnifying glass. We are revealing his already existing infinite size to ourselves and to others around us.
So when we declare his faithfulness and his power, we're making him appear in his true, magnificent size to a world that often tries to minimize him.
Exactly. And the call to do it together encourages us to share the load of praise, to declare God's goodness as a community. It connects so directly to the New Testament's constant instruction to live a life of gratitude.
Right. I'm thinking of Thessalonians 5.18, giving thanks in everything.
A perfect parallel. David's commitment here sets the stage for that timeless expression of God's will, a heart focused on praise no matter the circumstances.
Okay, so that vow of praise transitions into the core of his personal experience, the divine rescue that started this whole thing. And it begins with his action in verse 4.
KJV, Psalm 34.4. I sought the Lord, and he heard me, and delivered me from all my fears.
The sequence there is so simple but profound. Seeking leads to being heard, which leads to deliverance. But what kind of deliverance are we talking about here?
This is a key insight from the UNFIJ in Jesus team analysis. God's rescue is holistic. It wasn't just that he was delivered from the physical danger of Acush.
He's delivered from all my fears.
Yes, think about it. In that terrifying moment in Gath, he was facing death, sure, but his soul was also being tormented by intense anxiety, the shame of his situation, the fear that God had abandoned him.
So God's deliverance was comprehensive. He rescued David from the external threat, but maybe more importantly, he gave him freedom from the internal terror.
Precisely. The spiritual payoff of seeking God is a comprehensive peace. And David immediately expands this personal testimony into a universal principle in the next two verses.
Right, in KJV, Psalm 34.5-6. They looked unto him and were lightened, and their faces were not ashamed. This poor man cried, and the Lord heard him and saved him out of all his trouble.
Did you catch that? The shift from I to they. He quickly makes his experience a promise for anyone who does the same thing, looks to the Lord.
And what does it mean that they were lightened?
The Hebrew word there suggests a radiance. It implies two things at once. First, their faces were illuminated with joy and hope radiant with God's presence. And second, their burdens literally became lighter.
So when you look to God, your shame is lifted, your burden is relieved, and their faces were not ashamed.
Meaning their trust in God was vindicated, it wasn't foolish. And then David refers to himself so humbly as this poor man.
That's a powerful contrast. This is the great military leader, the giant slayer.
But it emphasizes his utter dependence in that moment. His deliverance didn't come from his power or his status, but from his humility and his helpless cry to God.
Which gives us a very practical step. When you are overwhelmed by fear or trouble, choose to seek the Lord in that place of humility.
Trusting that he hears the cry of the helpless. It reminds you of Matthew chapter 7, verse 7. Ask, and it shall be given you. Seek, and you shall find. Knock, and it shall be opened unto you. David is modeling that perfectly.
And now we get to one of the most vivid and comforting promises in the whole psalm, the idea of supernatural, almost military-grade protection in verse 7.
This is a promise that should fundamentally change how we view our daily lives. KJV Psalm 34.7. The angel of the Lord encampeth round about them that feel him and delivereth them.
That word encampeth creates such a clear defensive military picture.
It's deliberately strong language. The angel of the Lord in the Old Testament is often understood as a manifestation of God himself, or at least a messenger with full divine authority.
So this angel is acting as a protective military force.
Establishing a secure perimeter and encampment around those who hold God in that reverent awe we talked about. This protection is strategic, it's constant, and it's completely reliable.
And we have to reiterate, this protection is specifically for them that fear him. The promise is conditional on that reverent relationship.
Absolutely. The promise is essentially God saying, because you submit to my authority, I will personally surround and defend you. The "you need faith" in Jesus team emphasis here is a great reminder that God's heavenly host is actively engaged on behalf of his people.
And this isn't just an Old Testament idea. This promise carries right into the New Testament.
It's cemented there. Hebrews chapter 1 verse 14 confirms it, calling angels ministering spirits sent forth to minister for them who shall be heirs of salvation.
So this ancient promise gives us immense comfort today. We're not fighting our battles alone.
Not at all. God provides strategic heavenly protection. David, scrabbling on that gate, somehow recognized the unseen forces that were working for him.
That confirmation of supernatural protection leads us right to the great central invitation of this psalm in verse 8. This is the most famous part, isn't it?
It really is. It's the pivot point of the whole psalm, moving you from just observing David's experience to participating in it yourself.
Let's hear it. KJV Psalm 34.8. Oh, taste and see that the Lord is good. Blessed is the man that trusteth in him.
Oh, taste and see. It engages the senses. It's a challenge to move beyond just hearing about God's goodness to actually experiencing it for yourself.
So what does that challenge practically entail?
It demands experiential knowledge. It's the difference between reading a glowing review of a meal and actually tasting it. Intellectual agreement, knowing God is good, is not enough.
It's a direct challenge to put God to the test through active faith.
Yes, it requires intentional, personal application, and the verse immediately gives us the mechanism for how to do the tasting.
Which is trust.
The crucial link is trusting. The blessing isn't for the man who is merely observant or moral or religious. It's for the man that trusteth in him. Trust is the action. You have to step out in faith and entrust God with your circumstances, and then, and only then, do you get to experience his goodness firsthand.
This sounds so foundational to the New Testament message as well.
It is so foundational that the Apostle Peter quotes it directly. In 1 Peter chapter 2, verse 3, he encourages believers to grow in their faith, saying, "If so be ye have tasted that the Lord is gracious." David's invitation is core to the whole gospel experience.
So the practical step here is about daily, intentional application of faith.
Exactly. This is where theory becomes action. It means actively trusting God. Difficult relationships, your uncertain future.
It's through that active reliance on Him that you get to taste and see.
And that transforms you from an observer into a participant in the blessing.
So after that great invitation, David shifts gears. He becomes the wisdom teacher, instructing the congregation on the tangible benefits of living in the fear of the Lord.
He does. He starts with the promise of provision in verses 9 and 10. He goes right back to that central theme.
Let's read it. KJV Psalm 34.9 to 10. O fear the Lord, ye his saints, for there is no want to them that fear him. The young lions do lack and suffer hunger, but they that seeks the Lord shall not want any good thing.
There it is again. The fear of the Lord. That reverent awe is the root of the blessing, and here the blessing is no want.
That is a promise of incredible spiritual security.
And he uses such a powerful contrast to make his point. The young lions.
The pinnacle of strength and self-sufficiency in the natural world.
Right. If anyone should be able to provide for themselves through sheer power, it's a young lion. Yet, David says, even they do lack and suffer hunger.
So he's contrasting the might of the self-reliant with the security of the God-reliant.
Exactly. And the promise is that those who seek the Lord will not lack any good thing. Now, we have to be really clear about what that means.
Right. This is not a promise of boundless wealth or a prosperity gospel.
Absolutely not. The promise is that God will provide everything necessary for life and for godliness, not for luxury. It aligns perfectly with what Jesus teaches in the New Testament.
I'm thinking of Matthew chapter 6, verse 33.
Exactly. But seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you. David confirms that seeking God secures the provision of all things that are truly good and needful for us.
Following this promise, David then fully adopts the role of a sage, instructing the younger generation in verse 11.
This is a really formal moment of teaching in the psalm. KJV, Psalm 34.11. Come, ye children, hearken unto me, I will teach you the fear of the Lord.
He's establishing his credibility. He's saying, listen to me, the man who was just dramatically delivered.
I'm going to teach you the operating system that just saved my life. And he immediately poses the central motivational question that drives the rest of the psalm in verse 12.
Which is KJV Psalm 34.1. What man is he that desireth life and loveth many days, that he may see good.
It's a universal desire, right? Everyone wants a long, satisfying, good life. And the next two verses are the highly detailed 4-point answer to that question. This is the practical application of the fear of the Lord.
Okay, let's break down that checklist from verses 13 and 14 as the instructional framework lays it out. KJV, Psalm 34.1314. Keep thy tongue from evil and thy lips from speaking guile. Depart from evil and do good. Seek peace and pursue it.
The first two actions focus on what is probably the most difficult area of self-control for any of us.
Our speech. Point 1, speech control.
Yes, and David puts it first for a reason. Keep thy tongue from evil and thy lips from speaking guile. This is about proactive self-censorship, avoiding slander, gossip, deceit.
The tongue is the clearest indicator of what's in the heart.
That's why it's first. If we're failing here, we're not living in the fear of the Lord. And the New Testament affirms how difficult this is. The Apostle James, in his epistle, chapter 3, verse 8, says, "But the tongue can no man tame. It is an unruly evil, full of deadly poison."
So righteous living has to start with controlling our words.
It must. Then the next 2 points focus on decisive action, both the negative and the positive.
Okay, so point 2 is the negative action.
Depart from evil. This isn't just passive avoidance. It requires actively creating distance from sin, from habits and influences that pull you away from God. It's a decisive turning away.
And then the third point is the positive side. And do good.
You can't just create a vacuum. The absence of evil has to be filled with active, intentional righteousness. You have to seek out opportunities for kindness, for justice, for positive contribution.
So righteousness isn't just about what you don't do, but what you do.
Exactly. And finally, the fourth point brings us back into community.
Peacemaking.
Seek peace and pursue it. Notice the two verbs there. Peace isn't something that just passively happens. David commands us to be proactive. You have to seek it, look for it, and then pursue it, run after it.
Which requires effort, humility, and intentionality in all our relationships.
It does. And the practical step for you, the listener, is right there. This is a 4-point checklist for daily self-examination. Do you want a long, good life? Then you must intentionally work on controlling your tongue, fleeing evil, doing good, and pursuing peace.
It's a very clear metric for whether we're truly submitting to the fear of the Lord.
A highly actionable piece of wisdom.
Okay, so in our final section, David's focus returns to God's perspective. He defines this ultimate contrast between the destiny of the righteous and the wicked.
He does, and he starts with God's intimate attention in verses 15 through 17. This really defines the unwavering security of those who trust him.
Let's hear it. KJV, Psalm 34.15-17. The eyes of the Lord are upon the righteous, and his ears are open unto their cry. The face of the Lord is against them that do evil, to cut off the remembrance of them from the earth. The righteous cry, and the Lord heareth, and delivereth them out of all their troubles.
The intimacy described there for the righteous is just breathtaking. God's attention is constant, it's caring, it's comprehensive.
His eyes are upon them, and his ears are open unto their cry. That's an assurance of total accessibility.
You are always seen and always heard, there's no doubt. But then the contrast is so stark. His face is against them that do evil.
And that's not just passive disapproval.
No, it's active divine displeasure and judgment, which ultimately leads to their legacy being erased, to cut off the remembrance of them from the earth.
So the wicked, in seeking their own glory, find ultimate oblivion. And the assurance for the righteous is repeated in verse 17.
That God hears and delivers them out of all their troubles. And this truth is so central that it's affirmed verbatim in the New Testament by the Apostle Peter.
Right, in 1 Peter chapter 3, verse 12, he quotes it exactly.
He does. For the eyes of the Lord are over the righteous, and his ears are open unto their prayers. But the face of the Lord is against them that do evil. It just confirms that God is actively engaged in our struggles.
Then David provides a special comfort, specifically for those who are struggling internally, who are broken by life or by conviction.
This is verse 18, KJV, Psalm 34.18. The Lord is nigh unto them that are of a broken heart, and saveth such as be of a contrite spirit.
This just completely counters the idea that God is only present when we're strong. He's specifically near the broken heart.
It's a special proximity for those who are suffering. God is not distant from our pain. A contrite spirit means one who is crushed, humbled, deeply penitent.
Someone who has recognized their sin or failure and approaches God without any pride.
It's the spiritual posture required for salvation. You have to be broken of self-reliance before you can rely entirely on him. And this echoes some profound prophetic truth.
Like in Isaiah,
Exactly. Isaiah chapter 57, verse 15, where God promises to dwell with him also, that is, of a contrite and humble spirit, to revive the spirit of the humble and to revive the heart of the contrite ones.
The practical step there is so critical. When you're heartbroken or feeling the conviction of sin, you should run to God, not away from him.
Knowing that he meets you right there in that place of humility, ready to save and restore.
Now we get to the realism of faith in verses 19 and 20. David acknowledges that the righteous life is not free from trouble.
He's very direct about it. KJV, Psalm 34.1920. Many are the afflictions of the righteous, but the Lord delivereth him out of them all. He keepeth all his bones. Not one of them is broken.
That first line is unflinching, isn't it? The afflictions will be many. Faith does not mean you bypass suffering.
It's a necessary reality check. It completely contradicts the idea that faith guarantees a trouble-free life. The promise isn't immunity, it's deliverance through them all.
For God's faithfulness is shown by preserving his people through the fire, not by stopping the fire from ever starting.
That's right. And then comes that truly astonishing statement in verse 20, he keepeth all his bones, not one of them is broken. And this is more than just a general statement of protection.
This is a specific, powerful prophecy.
This is where David's human experience intersects with the divine plan for salvation. The You Need Faith in Jesus team materials are excellent on this point regarding messianic fulfillment. David, in describing God's perfect protection, was speaking beyond his own time directly to the Messiah.
So detail that prophetic fulfillment for us, specifically what happened at the crucifixion.
It's remarkably specific. During Roman crucifixions, the soldiers would often break the legs of the crucified to hasten their death, especially before the Sabbath.
The practice of crurifragem.
Exactly. But when the soldiers came to Jesus, they saw he was already dead. And because of that, they did not break his legs.
And the Apostle John connects this directly back to Psalm 34.
He does. John chapter 19, verse 36 explicitly states, "For these things were done, that the scripture might be fulfilled, a bone of him shall not be broken."
That level of specific detail, centuries before the event, is just incredible. It confirms the divine authority of the whole psalm.
It absolutely does. It connects David's personal story in Gath to the grand narrative of redemption. The same God who delivered David is the same God who preserved Christ's body on the cross.
And then finally, verses 21 and 22 give us the ultimate contrast of destiny, the absolute eternal security for the redeemed.
KJV, Psalm 34.21-22. Evil shall slay the wicked, and they that hate the righteous shall be desolate. The Lord redeemeth the soul of his servants, and none of them that trust in him shall be desolate.
The wicked's destruction is self-inflicted. Their own evil slays them, but the Lord redeemeth the soul of his servants.
And that word, redeems, it carries immense covenantal weight. It means to buy back, to pay the price, to release someone from bondage or a penalty.
It points directly to the finished work of Jesus Christ.
It has to. He paid the ultimate penalty. And the assurance that flows from that redemption is absolute security. None of them that trust in him shall be desolate. And desolation there means condemned, found guilty, abandoned.
So if you trust in him, you are eternally secure from condemnation, no matter what temporary afflictions you might face.
Precisely. The Apostle Paul summarizes this perfectly in Romans chapter 8, verse 1. There is therefore now no condemnation to them which are in Christ Jesus, who walk not after the flesh, but after the Spirit.
And the practical step is to simply rest in that knowledge, that your soul is redeemed and your eternal standing is secure.
Yes, and that security is what enables the at all times praise he talked about all the way back in verse 1. It brings the whole psalm full circle.
What a profound journey. We started with David at his absolute lowest, most shameful moment, feigning madness in Gath. And we followed his progression to a triumphant vow of praise, which ultimately leads us to the grand, prophetic assurance of messianic deliverance and eternal security.
And that transformation is the genius of Psalm 34. God takes David's personal humiliating panic and transforms it into a platform for teaching generations how to live in the fear of the Lord.
It shows that God doesn't waste our trials.
He converts our moments of deepest shame into the foundation of our most powerful testimony.
Which brings us to our final provocative thought, based on everything we've explored today. The deepest, most counterintuitive insight of Psalm 34 is that God transforms our greatest vulnerabilities into the very proof of his supernatural protection.
Yes. Think about it. The same man who is literally scratching on a gate is the man who writes, "The angel of the Lord encampeth round about them that fear him and delivereth them." Our neediness, our humility, our choice to seek him when we are utterly bankrupt is the precise condition that unlocks God's perfect military-grade defense.
So we should never be ashamed of the humility that led us to seek God.
Because that vulnerability is what proves the power of his deliverance.
We encourage you to reflect on that practical wisdom David laid out, especially the daily intentionality of tongue control, departing evil, doing good, and seeking peace, as defined in the lessons provided in this curriculum.
Remember that active trust, putting God to the test in your daily life, is the mechanism by which you truly taste and see that the Lord is good.
To solidify your understanding of this lesson, be sure to use the flashcards to review key terms and then take the quiz. Passing the quiz will mark this lesson as complete.